From Ticker, this is Black Belt Leader. Here's Karen Gately.
Welcome to Black Belt Leader. I'm Karen Gately, the founder of Corporate Dojo. On the show today, we're going to be talking about advisory boards, how business leaders can engage the support of a panel of experts to enable the business results that you're striving to achieve. So we're lucky to be joined by two guests. Our first guest is an expert in this area and gives a lot of advice and guidance out there on how you can establish the right advisory board for you. And then we'll be talking to a leader who's actually been down the path, someone who's actually implemented a board and gaining some real advantage from doing so. So first of all, let's have a look at a few facts around advisory boards. In Australia, it's absolutely evident that a lot of organisations are looking to implement advisory boards to help growth. So research shows that 74% of organisations are bringing these advisory councils together to enable them to reach into new markets or obviously achieve more within their existing markets. Succession planning is another key part of the process with 17%. And the study also found that sustainability of operations, the business model, and just making sure things are being done well is 5% of why people go down this path. So joining us now is CEO and founder of the Advisory Board Centre, Louise Brockman, Black Belt Leader.
Thanks, Karen. Great to be here.
So Louise, really keen to tap into your views of, at what point does it make sense for a business to really think about an advisory board? At what point in the journey would you say is either common or advisable for business owners to think about this?
It was good to see you profiling the research that was done in the State of the Market report, Karen, around an advisory board and why you established an advisory board. And you're right, in that research that we released last year, 74% of them say they want to grow. But it's at the stage of the business where they want growth or focusing on what's next really changes. So a business at a $1.5 million turnover is really different in their motivations and what growth actually means versus a $10 million or a $30 million, $50 million business or a $100 million business. They're all quite unique in their own expectations for growth. In the current market too, we are seeing advisory boards being established to focus on navigating what's next to either get through the current situation or work towards a goal or work towards a decision. And that's something that's actually new in the market and that's growing as well.
Mm-hmm. So how does I, as a business owner, start to think about what kind of advisory board might benefit my business? And, then obviously the next question is, how do we go about finding those people, bringing this team together?
Yeah, it's an absolute challenge. And it was a challenge for me back in 2005 when I wanted to build an advisory board for my own business, but I didn't know what, and then I didn't know who. Now we have a professional body that's established to oversee advisory board establishment and ongoing measurement of impact as well. The challenge when businesses see that they go, I want an advisory board and I want advisors, is that you really need to stop and focus on what does the business need now and the next 18 months to 3 years. What are the priorities for the business and what are my expectations as a business owner for my business and the kind of advice that I want to get. Focusing on that planning component, identifying the top priorities for the business. And I when I'm supporting businesses in the concierge service, we say, what are your top 3 priorities? And then from that, you can then identify what is the role of the chair that's my constant, that's going to be my rock. What's their background and experience is going to be that I really need, and I genuinely trust in that expertise. And then the advisors are then chosen by the other business priorities that are needed. So the structure of the what then indicates the who component. We know what the business needs, what kind of backgrounds are going to be really relevant and valuable for that business. You can then scope out the who part. Do you need an entrepreneur? Do you need a C-suite executive? Do you need a specialist in their field? Do you need someone in another location, another jurisdiction to help me oversee my asset in another? So it all depends on, first of all, the priorities of the business, and then accessing the right advisors at the right time. Now, selecting those advisors can be pretty tricky because you want to tap into people that you don't know. And that's a challenge
Yeah.
that I saw when we were researching and testing the advisory board market for 5 years before we established the Advisory Board Centre as a professional body, because we need to escalate trust in being able to say, I want to go beyond the people I know, go to the people that I don't know. So look for people that are credentialed, that are not only leaders in their field, but they're investing in their advisor capability and skill set, that they understand what the ethical frameworks are around providing advice, because it'd be very easy to become a shadow director, or if you don't know what you're doing as an advisor, to flip into being a consultant. Don't want those lines blurred around an advisory board table. And then choosing and interviewing people first before you choose, and then have the right models of engagement that sits behind that.
So tell us a bit more about how your organisation supports businesses down this path, because, you know, obviously now reaching out to potential advisors and members of advisory board, engaging those people, understanding the terms of which, you know, they should and can be engaged. You know, how do people really get the answers to those questions?
The Advisory Board has an advisor concierge service. It's a complimentary service. We don't charge for that, so we're not a recruitment agency, nor do we take percentage fees, rebates, or any kickbacks, so that we are truly independent. And that's our gift to the business sector, because 95% of businesses, when they come to us saying, I need something, I just don't know what, never had before. So that's a really important nectar between the business community and advisory community. So we help them scope out what their different advisory structures could be, and they choose the support structure that they want. We help them scope out their expression of interest that goes out to the advisory community, and then advisors can apply for that. Business owners, we provide them with interview templates and resources. There's an e-learning program for them to be prepared for that process if they want to go down that track. And then they select their advisors from that. We are a sounding board in that, and that support mechanism to owners as they go through that journey, but we're not a decision maker or a filter for them, because business owners need to step up and be absolutely really honest about the why am I choosing somebody, and making a firm decision about what they want and who they want. So we don't get caught up in that process, and owners own the decision that they're making.
Yeah, fully support that. You know, again, if I observe cases that have worked, cases that have struggled, the partnership, the depth of relationship, the trust, the respect between the business owner and their board, it is everything, you know, in terms of them being able to add real value. And, you know, again, you can't outsource that. You know, you can't ask somebody else to select who's going to be that right team of partners, you know, to help your thinking and your decision making. So when do you see things working well? And again, give us the contrast of when it doesn't end up adding value to the extent it could.
You get all ends of the spectrum in this current day, the way that advisors and advisory boards are engaged and how they act. In February this year, we released the world's first best practice framework for advisory boards, to really show the principles of what an advisory board is about, rather than relying on rules about what an advisory board is. It's not regulated and it's not legislated. So you need to know what you're doing, which is why it's so important to have a certified chair in place to ensure that those parameters are working. But ultimately, if it's not working, you've got to cut it. And we see situations where either a business owner is not committed, may not want to listen to advice, which is a poor return when that occurs. Sometimes we see advisory board members being more ambitious for the business owner than what the business owner is for themselves. And so you really need to understand, rather than judge a business owner when you're sitting on an advisory board, to ensure that you understand the risk appetite of a business owner, and what their threshold is, because it's not, it's also their life. And advisors and advisory boards need to understand that whole story to ensure that they're aligned. I think also another point really important about the success of an advisory board is that it's always fresh and it's new, and advisors need to change out when the business needs have changed. You need to be able to change the voices around that table to make sure it maintains relevancy to the business.
Absolutely agree. So, again, if you were to give business owners out there, one piece of advice around the role they need to play to ensure that an advisory board does add value, what would you say that is?
Clarity and planning, Karen. I think know what you're looking for, know what your expectations are. The charter is an important piece to an advisory board, knowing what the advisory board is there to do and what it's not there to do. You don't want shadow directors. You don't want duplication of conversations that should be sitting somewhere else. The advisory board then comes in, and then you have the same conversation in multiple environments. It becomes unwieldy and confusing when you don't have that clarity. So get that clarity, be crystal clear about what you're for from your advisory board, and stay the course. Don't be like a free range chicken and ask them for everything. Ask them for things that actually are what you're trying to focus on for your business.
Yeah. Absolutely. Fantastic. Louise, really appreciate your advice. Again, how do our viewers find you and your organisation?
Advisory Board Centre, on its website, connecting with me personally on LinkedIn. Just search for the Advisory Board Centre and we're there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again. Really do appreciate you taking the time to share your insights.
Thanks, Karen.
So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to Chris Eldridge about his experiences in implementing an advisory board.
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Live. And you can catch us on Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Head to the Ticker website for more. From Ticker, this is Black Belt Leader. Here's Karen Gately.
Welcome back to Black Belt Leader, where we're talking about advisory boards and how business owners can leverage advice, expertise from experienced people to help drive their businesses in new directions, to grow, to ultimately thrive. So we're pleased to be now joined by Chris Eldridge, who is the CEO and Director of For Impact, a technology services business. At advisory board, and is here today to share his views. Welcome to Black Belt Leader. Can you hear us, Chris? I think we might have a sound issue at the moment. Joys of technology. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with you in a moment.
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Live. And you can catch us on Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Head to the Ticker website for more. From Ticker, this is Black Belt Leader. Here's Karen Gately.
Welcome back to Black Belt Leader. We're now going to be talking to Chris Eldridge from For Impact. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Good to hear you.
Yes, made it.
I always do find it amusing when we have technology issues with technology guests. Seems to work that way.
Oh, dear me. Anyway, let's move on.
You're not the first, you won't be the last. But no, clearly, thank you for joining us. And, do appreciate now's a crazy time in terms of everybody working remotely and obviously having to use these forums to have a chat. We were very keen to tap into your experiences in implementing an advisory board. And, if we can start with understanding why you went down that path, where was your business at and why did you decide that it mattered?
For us, we put an advisory board in place at the start of 2018. We started, and our business was going through a bunch of change. We got original shareholders leaving, some new shareholders coming in, and we'd grown fast early as a business, but really hit a bit of a plateau and a ceiling. And with the changes, we looked at it and said, well, if we keep doing things the same way, we're not going to get the outcome we want. And great believer in the brand and what we've built. But, we're like a lot of the entrepreneurs want to grow the business. So CEO had met the advisory board centre. They'd been recommended as someone who might be able to help us. And so we met with Louise and she helped us in terms of evaluating the business, where we were, some of the things we wanted to do, and then helped us through a selection process. And we looked at it as a way of doing things differently from how we currently were doing it, and to help us on the journey.
Yeah. So what kind of, give us insight to the talent that you brought into your organisation. So what capabilities, what insights, what, influence did those people have?
Yeah, well, our business has been going for about 13 years at that point. And, part of, I said before, we didn't want to do it the same way. So we went through a process and really looked at what were the problems we wanted to get past and what was the help we would need. So in actual fact, the people in our advisory board, we originally wanted to pick 3 and we ended up with 4, which was great. But that no one is from our industry. In actual fact, we're not, they're not technologists. We picked a chair that we could build around, that we saw that would have some good general knowledge and finance ability as well in the business, and then picked 3 other advisors who'd be able to help us with specific issues that we saw at the time. So we've got a real eclectic mix. And one of the things I really wanted for a business that was trying to grow was to make sure that we had someone on there who had an entrepreneurial background as well, and had done it, was ahead of us in the process. So we really, I think, built a good mix of people with corporate experience, consulting and advisory experience, as well as another person who'd been in there and done what we were trying to do, which was really important because you have to temper the advice with the practicalities of running a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of that been there, done that wisdom can add a great deal of value. And as you're saying, also some fresh perspective from outside of your industry, without necessarily that strong history within the industry, we can bring a new lens and add real value. So help us to understand, some of the challenges inherent in this process and getting the advisory board to work effectively and have that influence.
Yeah, I won't say it was a straightforward. We had four highly talented people coming in to help our business, and we'd never done this before. So we were trying to work out how to present the right information as well. So we spent a bit of time finding our feet so that we could bring the people, advisors, up to speed. You've got advisors who obviously want to add value as well. So I think we learned that there's some rat holes you're going to go down, and that's just part of the process, getting people across your business. And for us, it was also learning to be able to say, this is what we want from this particular meeting. We want these questions answered, and we don't want those questions answered. And that's a challenge, but it's actually part of the growth process for the business. Very valuable. But, I think there were probably some frustrating meetings earlier on because, we hadn't quite got what we wanted, even though we probably didn't know what we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I wanted to explore with you next, whether or not you or others around you struggled with the whole letting go, listening more, being willing to have, for example, conventional wisdom challenged. How did you find that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think that the challenge didn't necessarily come from the advisors per se. It probably came from ourselves as we were, we had three senior people in the business. And, I actually, as the founder and a business owner, I was playing an operational role in the business, and I have a CEO who, runs the business. And it exposed some things there that, were very valuable. And subsequently to that, I've stepped away from an operational role in the business so that the CEO can get on with doing what he needs to do. So I think it's fair to say it did expose some things, but that's all part of what it works. And the founder, I think you go through phases in business and you realise that people who are right for your business at a particular point are not necessarily the people who are right for you going forward. And that includes the founder and the owner. You have to question, have you got the skills for the next phase? Is that the best use? And that is what you're sort of alluding to is, do you want control? Are you prepared to let that go? I've made that choice that I'm not the best person to go through the next phase. I've got skills to bring, but, I need to let go and get out of the way. Our advisory board,
Yeah, otherwise you invest a whole bunch of energy, money, time in something that has limited value because you're your own biggest roadblock. Obviously you've gone on a journey that we often observe business owners needing to go on, to move past that founder syndrome where we're still wanting to really hang on to some of those gold nuggets in the past. They can't be challenged. It's what our foundations of success are built on, to actually be able to let go of some of that and allow a fresh perspective, new directions. So yeah, credit to you. And what do you think the biggest benefit is as a business owner, as a leader, as a human being, do you think has come from making that transition?
I think what's really useful is for me, stepping into the role of a business owner, I've been able to now work on some of the formal board governance processes as a private business. How do we build that out? How do we make that more effective as well? And knowing that there's a group of people who've got my CEO's back and they're really trying to help him answer the questions that he's got strategically and operationally to take the business to the next level. And we've got a bunch of people in our advisory board who've got skills in finance and capital. They've got skills in HR and culture. They've got skills in building business. and we're actually going through a refresh now to bring some new skills for the next phase of our business. And that's one of the really great things about the advisory board is you're not locked in. If you build around a really strong chair and bring the skills to solve the problems you've got at the particular point, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Liberating. So, if you were to draw on one lesson learned around, your journey implementing an advisory board well, what would you say your main piece of advice to someone who is in your seat at that, similar point in making the decision?
Yeah, look, there are lots of learnings. So to summarise into one is difficult, but I think it's about being prepared to recognise that you don't have all the answers, and bringing advisors in is not about them having the answers either. It's about them asking good questions to check whether or not you yourself and your team have asked the right questions. So it builds a level of confidence. And the part of the power is in preparing the material for the advisory board session, which, you're going to be on show a little bit. You better have thought about it and put the effort in. And I think that's as valuable as the actual meetings and the questions. But
Absolutely.
be prepared to get quizzed.
Yeah, and absolutely that's key to maturing the organisation, isn't it? That focus, that discipline, knowing our priorities, turning up to be held accountable by people that we've asked to help us to do that. So, look, Chris, really appreciate your time and sharing all of that experience with us. How can people find out more about your organisation and what you guys do in the technology services space?
Well, the easiest way is to go to the website, www.forimpact.com. Or if you want to track me down on LinkedIn, you can find me. Send me a message and let me know what you're interested about, and happy to share.
Fantastic. Well, again, really appreciate you being here with us today.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.
So that's all we have for the show today. If there are topics you would like us to cover, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can do that through any of our social media channels or on our website, corporatedojo.com. And remember, you choose. Will you be an ordinary or an awesome leader of your people?
There are now more ways to watch Ticker. Download our apps for Apple and Android devices. We're live on Twitter and YouTube Live. And you can catch us on Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Head to the Ticker website for more.